The woman who refused to disappear. Judah left his brothers because guilt is easier to outrun than confront. He built a new life among strangers, married quickly, had sons quickly, built reputation quickly. But foundations built on silence always crack. The house of Judah was loud during the day. Servants moved, livestock groaned, grain was measured, commands were given. But at night, it grew quiet in a way that felt wrong. The firstborn, ruled his corner of that house like someone who believed power proved existence. He had inherited more than position. He had inherited entitlement. From childhood, no one corrected him for long. No one challenged him twice. He learned early that silence from others meant control, and control fed him. When Tamar entered the household as his bride, she entered with ceremony, oil, music, blessing, expectation. But expectation can die slowly. Was not loud in his cruelty. He did not rage publicly. He did not strike where bruises could be seen. His wickedness was colder, more deliberate. He withheld presence, withheld affection, withheld basic dignity. He studied weakness the way some men study trade. He enjoyed watching discomfort bloom in someone's eyes, enjoyed the moment when hope realized it would not be fulfilled. He spoke gently in public. Privately, his words cut with surgical precision. You should be grateful. You belong here because of me. Do not forget who gives you a name. Tamar learned quickly that marriage had become surveillance. He controlled when she spoke, when she sat, when she was acknowledged, and in the quietest moments, there was something hollow in his gaze, not anger, emptiness, the kind that swallows empathy whole. Servants avoided direct eye contact with him. Animals stiffened when he approached. The air around him felt heavy. Scripture gives one sentence. Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord. One evening the wind shifted. There had been tension in the air all day, static, unsettling. Had been unusually irritable, not explosive, just sharpened. He dismissed everyone early, closed the doors, retreated into the inner chamber. Tamar remembered the silence that followed. No shouting, no struggle, just silence. Hours passed, the oil lamps burned low, and something in the atmosphere changed. Pressure, like the moment before a storm breaks. Inside that room, no human eye recorded what happened. No servant testified, no physician examined. But whatever confronted him, it did not negotiate, it did not argue, it did not warn. The firstborn who believed he controlled his household suddenly found himself facing a presence that did not bend. Scripture says simply, the Lord put him to death. Not illness, not accident, not conspiracy, judgment. And judgment came without spectacle. By morning, was still. The man who filled rooms with intimidation now filled one with stillness. Servants whispered outside the chamber. Judah stood rigid. Tamar stood at the threshold, not weeping yet, just staring. Power had evaporated overnight. No wound marked him. No visible cause explained it. That was the terror. He looked the same, but life had been removed, and when heaven removes breath, no inheritance can buy it back. The house shifted after that. Fear replaced confidence. Superstition replaced pride. 2 sons would die in that household, but the first death cracked the illusion, because the wicked often believe silence protects them until heaven answers, and answers decisively.
The house changed after that. Tamar changed too. She was now a widow, but still young, still fertile, still useful. The day Judah summoned him, Onan already knew. The house still carried the shadow of his brother's death. Servants moved softer. Conversations ended when footsteps approached. Er's room had been cleared. his name not spoken loudly anymore. Judah's voice was firm when he called the second son forward. "You will go in to your brother's wife, fulfill your duty, raise up offspring for your brother." Duty, not love, not choice. Onan stood there, face composed, back straight, eyes obedient. "Yes, Father." But inside, something coiled, because he understood what this meant. The child born would not carry his name. The inheritance would not expand under him. His brother, even in death, would outrank him. And Onan had lived too long in the shadow of a firstborn to willingly strengthen it. The marriage ceremony was smaller this time, less music, less celebration, whispers instead of laughter. Tamar stood again in bridal garments, but her eyes were different now. Grief had hollowed them. Hope had been replaced with caution. Onan noticed, and something in him resented even that. He entered the marriage publicly compliant. He played the role well. He held her hand when others were watching, spoke respectfully in open spaces, presented himself as the responsible son stepping into tragedy. Judah approved. The household relaxed. But night reveals what daylight disguises. When the doors closed and lamps dimmed, Onan's mask shifted. He was not cruel like He was colder, strategic. He understood biology, and he understood exactly how to obey just enough to avoid accusation. At night he went to her, because refusing entirely would expose him, because appearing righteous mattered. But he calculated the ending every time. Scripture says, when he went in to his brother's wife, he wasted his seed on the ground, lest he should give offspring to his brother. That sentence is clinical. The reality was psychological warfare. Over and over again, he would approach her with the illusion of fulfillment, close enough for hope to spark, close enough for Tamar to think, maybe this time, and then withdrawal, denial, a quiet refusal that left no visible evidence, no pregnancy, no heir, no security, just emptiness. He would turn away afterward without explanation, as if nothing significant had just been withheld. Tamar began to understand. The first time she questioned nothing. The second time she wondered. By the third, she knew. This was intentional. This was punishment, not for anything she had done, but for the inheritance he refused to surrender. Onan smiled in the mornings, walked confidently through the courtyard, spoke of livestock, of trade, of future expansion, as if he were building something. But at night, he dismantled Tamar's future piece by piece. A cruelty that leaves no bruises is the hardest to prove, and he counted on that. Weeks turned into months. Whispers began again. She has not conceived. Eyes shifted toward her, not him. The woman always carries suspicion first. Onan watched this quietly, satisfied. If she remained childless long enough, perhaps the obligation would dissolve. Perhaps his father would release him. Perhaps the problem would fade. But heaven was not silent. There are injustices that men hide successfully from each other, but not from God. One night felt different, heavy, the air thick. Onan lay awake before going to her chamber. Something unsettled him, a restlessness he could not name. He entered anyway.
Routine had made him bold. He moved through the same motions, the same deception, the same calculated denial. But this time, when he rose from her bed, something shifted inside his chest. Not pain at first, pressure, a tightening. He paused, breath shortening. He gripped the edge of a table. The room felt smaller. Tamar stepped back instinctively. His face changed. Confidence drained. The color left his skin. He tried to speak, but breath would not obey. The pressure intensified, sudden, violent, invisible. Scripture says simply, "What he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord,
and he put him to death also. Also, the second son, the second judgment. Onan collapsed before dawn. No sword, no poison, no illness to explain, just divine interruption. By morning, the house of Judah was no longer whispering. It was afraid. 2 sons dead, same woman, and Tamar stood again in widow's garments. But this time, the fear in the house was not about her. It was about the God who was watching. Because wickedness that hides behind technical obedience is still wicked, and heaven does not mistake calculation for righteousness. She is cursed. Judah began to look at her as if death followed her shadow. There was 1 son left, Shelah, too young. Judah told her to return to her father's house until the boy matured. It sounded protective. It was exile, and Tamar knew it. She went home wrapped in widow's cloth, the fabric scratching against skin that still remembered betrayal. Days turned to seasons, seasons to years. Shelah grew. No messenger came, no arrangement, no promise fulfilled. She understood then. They were waiting for her to fade, to become invisible, to grow old quietly in her father's house, to carry shame that was never hers. Widows without sons were social ghosts, alive but erased. Something hardened inside her, not bitterness, clarity. She replayed every injustice, the cold husband, the calculating brother, the fearful father-in-law, the system designed to consume her and discard her. If she remained passive, she would disappear, and Tamar refused to disappear. Judah's wife died quietly. No scandal, no mystery, just burial. He tore his garments, sat in ashes, received visitors, accepted condolences. Public grief, measured, appropriate, visible. But grief has layers. The first layer is loud. The second is private. The third is hunger. Months passed. The house adjusted. Laughter returned cautiously. Wine was poured again. And then came sheep shearing season, a celebration disguised as labor. Men gathered in the hills, music carried through open air, animals were counted, wool was cut, wine flowed freely. It was the kind of season where restraint thinned. Judah decided to go to Timnah. He did not know someone else had already decided something too.
When word reached her, she did not react immediately. She sat still, let the information settle. Timnah, sheep shearing, wine, men celebrating far from household scrutiny. She knew the patterns. She knew Judah. She also knew something else. Shelah was grown, old enough, and still no summons had come. The promise had expired. The waiting was over. She stood slowly, walked to the place where her widow's garments were kept. The fabric was heavy. Not just cloth, identity, silence, exile, social death. She removed them carefully. No rage, no trembling. Folded them, smoothed the creases, like preparing a body for burial. Then she chose a veil, not bridal white, not festive color, neutral, anonymous. She covered her face. This was not disguise for seduction. This was strategy. If the system would not protect her, she would confront it. But not directly. Not yet. She positioned herself at Enaim, the place of eyes, an intersection, a place where travelers paused, where choices were made. The irony was almost poetic. For years she had been seen as cursed, seen as dangerous, seen as disposable, but never truly seen. Tonight, she would be seen differently. Judah traveled light. His friend Hira walked beside him. They laughed loudly, spoke of trade, of wool prices, of expansion.
Grief had thinned. Wine would erase what remained. When Judah saw her sitting by the road, something in him shifted. He did not recognize her, because recognition requires reflection, and Judah had not reflected in years. He saw a veiled woman alone at a crossroads. He saw opportunity. Desire has a way of shrinking morality. He approached casually, confidence in every step. How much? No introduction, no hesitation, just transaction. Tamar's voice was steady when she answered. A young goat. Simple, reasonable. He nodded. I will send it. She tilted her head slightly. And what will you give me until you send it? He hesitated for the first time. A flicker. Then confidence returned. What pledge do you want? She looked at him, not lustfully, clinically. Your seal? Your cord? Your staff? Silence. Those were not random objects. The seal bore his mark. The cord carried it around his neck. The staff symbolized authority, identity, authority, power. For a moment, something in him almost questioned it. Almost. But arrogance is louder than instinct. He removed them, placed them in her hands. In that transfer, the balance of power shifted. They entered the shadows. No music, no romance, no lingering, just flesh and consequence. But Tamar understood something Judah did not. This was not about pleasure. This was about restoration. In that darkness, she conceived more than a child. She conceived accountability. By morning, she was gone. Back in widow's garments, back in her father's house, back in silence. Judah, meanwhile, felt nothing but mild inconvenience. He sent the goat through his friend, find the shrine prostitute at Onan. But no one had seen such a woman. The men of the place shrugged. There's been no prostitute here. Hira returned empty-handed. Judah felt irritation crawl up his spine, a flicker of embarrassment, then calculation. Let her keep the pledge, he muttered. Otherwise we will become a laughingstock. Better to lose objects than reputation. Better to ignore than investigate. So he buried it. Or thought he did. 3 months later, the news exploded. Tamar is pregnant. The courtyard went silent. Judah's mind moved quickly, too quickly. Anger flared, public righteousness surged. Bring her out, he said, let her be burned. It was easier to condemn than to remember, easier to punish than to examine. He did not know that the objects he had handed over casually were about to return like a blade. Because Tamar had not seduced him, she had documented him, and the real climax was not in the shadows, it was coming in the light. They dragged her forward, crowds gathered, eyes hungry for scandal. She stood, calm, no trembling, no begging, because she had already calculated this moment. Before sentence could be carried out, she sent a message, not a scream, not an accusation, a presentation. To the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. The seal, the cord, the staff, laid before him. His authority, his identity, his shame. Time slowed. The crowd watched Judah's face drain of color, recognition, horror, exposure. He could deny her, but he could not deny himself. She is more righteous than I. The words were a confession and a surrender. Power shifted in that instant, not through violence, through truth. She had forced justice into the open, and he could not bury it. When labor came, even her womb carried tension. Twins fought inside her, struggling, pressing, competing. One hand emerged first, scarlet thread tied around it, marked as firstborn. But then, the hand withdrew, and another body surged forward instead, a reversal, a breakthrough. They named him Perez, the one who breaks through. History would remember Judah as a patriarch, but it was Tamar who forced his transformation. They tried to label her cursed, tried to exile her, silence her, erase her.
Instead, she became the fracture point in a corrupt structure. Her story is not comfortable, it is not tidy, it is survival inside a system built to consume women. It is strategy born from desperation. It is righteousness that does not look gentle. And generations later, her name would be spoken in the lineage of kings, not as scandal, but as necessary, because sometimes the darkest stories are the ones that change history.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episodes.